Welcome, brave souls, to the chilling depths of horror in detail. Today we're going to share scary Skinwalker horror stories. First story: the night I saw Skinwalker. Edit: the names were changed for privacy. The story is the same as best as I could remember it. It was late October, a night when the wind howled through the trees like a restless spirit, and the moon hung low, casting long, eerie shadows over the desolate landscape. I was visiting my grandparents' ranch in New Mexico, nestled deep in the desert, miles from the nearest town. The ranch had always been a place of comfort for me, a place where I could escape the noise of the city and bask in the quiet solitude of the open land. But that night, something felt different, like the land itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. Hey, you ever hear those stories about skinwalkers? My cousin Ethan asked, his voice breaking the silence as we sat by the fire pit outside. The flames flickered, casting a warm glow on our faces, but it did little to dispel the growing unease in my gut. Skinwalkers, I repeated, glancing over at him. His expression was serious, almost too serious for a kid who usually joked about everything. Yeah, he said, lowering his voice as if the very mention of the word could summon something from the shadows. They're these evil witches or spirits, I'm not really sure. They can shape-shift into animals, wolves, coyotes, whatever. But they're not just animals, you know? There's something else, something wrong. I chuckled nervously, trying to shake off the creepy feeling creeping up my spine. Come on, Ethan. That's just some Navajo legend, right? Something to scare kids. Ethan didn't laugh. Instead, he leaned closer to the fire, his eyes narrowing as he stared into the flames. I wouldn't be so sure. My dad said he saw one once, out near the old cattle pens. Said it was a coyote, but when he looked into its eyes, he knew it wasn't just an animal. It was like it was looking into him, reading his thoughts or something. A shiver ran down my spine despite the warmth of the fire. What happened? He backed away slowly, got the hell out of there. But he swears it followed him home that night. Heard scratching at the windows like it was trying to get inside. Ethan paused, his voice dropping to a whisper. Said he heard it whispering his name. Okay, enough. I forced a laugh, though my voice wavered. You're just trying to freak me out. Ethan shrugged, a grim smile on his face. Believe what you want. Just don't go wandering off alone tonight. We sat in silence for a while, the wind howling louder as the night grew darker. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched, that something was out there, just beyond the reach of the firelight. I'm heading in, I said finally, standing up and brushing the dirt off my jeans. It's getting cold. Ethan nodded, his eyes scanning the darkness beyond the fire. Yeah, good idea. I'll be right behind you. As I turned to head back to the house, I heard it a low, guttural growl, so deep it seemed to vibrate through the ground beneath my feet. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. Did you hear that? I whispered, my voice barely audible. Ethan was already on his feet, his eyes wide with fear. Don't move, he hissed. Whatever you do, don't run. The growl came again, closer this time. Slowly, I turned my head, my breath catching in my throat as I saw it. A pair of glowing eyes in the darkness, fixed on us with an intensity that sent a wave of pure terror through my body. The creature was massive, hunched over on all fours like a wolf, but there was something horribly wrong with it. Its limbs were too long, too distorted, and its fur was matted and filthy, almost like it was rotting away. And those eyes, they weren't the eyes of an animal. They were filled with malice, with a sick, twisted intelligence that made my blood run cold. Get to the house now, Ethan whispered, his voice shaking. We backed away slowly, never taking our eyes off the creature. It didn't move, just watched us, its growl rumbling through the night air like a warning. My heart raced as we reached the edge of the firelight, the safety of the house still too far away. And then, with a sudden, terrifying speed, the creature lunged forward. Run! Ethan shouted, grabbing my arm and yanking me toward the house. We sprinted across the yard, the sound of the creature's heavy breathing right behind us. I could hear its claws scraping against the ground, its growl turning into a savage snarl as it closed the distance between us. My legs burned, my lungs screamed for air, but I didn't dare slow down. The porch light was in sight, the old wooden steps just a few feet away. Ethan reached them first, throwing himself up the stairs and bursting through the door. I was right behind him, my hand outstretched, but just as I reached the steps, something sharp sliced across my ankle, sending me crashing to the ground. "Get up!" Ethan screamed from the doorway, but the pain was too intense. I looked back and my heart stopped. The creature was right there, towering over me, its breath hot and rancid on my face. "Please," I whispered, barely able to speak. The creature tilted its head, almost as if it were curious, its glowing eyes narrowing. And then, to my horror, it began to change. Its fur receded, its limbs twisted and cracked, contorting into a grotesque parody of a human form. Within moments, it was standing upright, a tall, gaunt figure with skin so pale it seemed to glow in the dark. Its face was a nightmare, a twisted, elongated snout with sharp, jagged teeth, and those eyes, those terrible, glowing eyes that now looked disturbingly human. It leaned down, its face inches from mine, and I heard it speak in a low, rasping voice that made my skin crawl. "You shouldn't have come here," it whispered, its breath like ice against my skin. With a surge of adrenaline, I kicked out with my good leg, catching it off guard. It stumbled back, and I scrambled to my feet, half crawling, half running up the steps. Ethan grabbed me, pulling me inside just as the creature lunged again, its claws raking across the door as we slammed it shut. We collapsed on the floor, gasping for breath, our hearts pounding in our chests. The creature howled in rage, the sound echoing through the house, rattling the windows. We could hear it circling outside, its heavy footsteps crunching on the gravel as it stalked around the house, looking for a way in. "We need to call someone," I gasped, my voice trembling. "The police, anyone. Who's going to believe us?" Ethan said, his voice just as shaky. "They'll think we're crazy." We huddled together in the middle of the room, every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of the wind outside, sending a fresh wave of fear through us. The creature's howls grew fainter, then stopped altogether. But we knew it was still out there, waiting, watching. "We can't stay here," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "It'll get in eventually." Ethan nodded, but neither of us moved. We were too terrified, too paralyzed by the thought of what was waiting for us outside. Hours passed, though it felt like days, and the night dragged on in suffocating silence. Finally, as the first light of dawn began to creep through the windows, we heard it, the soft padding of footsteps moving away from the house, disappearing into the distance. We waited until the sun was fully up, until the warmth of daylight filled the room, before we dared to move. Slowly, cautiously, we opened the door and stepped outside. The yard was empty, the only sign of what had happened the deep gouges in the ground where the creature had stood. But I knew it wasn't over. The memory of those glowing eyes, that voice whispering in the dark, would haunt me forever. We never spoke of that night again, not to each other, not to anyone. But from that day on, I never went near the ranch at night, and I always kept a wary eye on the shadows, knowing that somewhere out there, the Skinwalker was waiting, and it knew my name. Second story, I think I encountered a Skinwalker. I have no evidence, but I promise you all this story is real. Sorry for the wall of text. I've always been a bit of a skeptic ever since I was a kid. Scary stories don't faze me. Horror games never frighten me. And whenever I hear something weird at night, I instantly assume it's something normal, an animal, or just the house settling. Despite this, something very unsettling happened to me the other day, and I'm really not sure what to make of it. I think it's the first time in years I've been genuinely frightened. I live in a forested area in the U.S. Me and my girlfriend live in a large cabin, and although there are roads nearby, our nearest neighbors are at least a kilometer away. We also have two cats, one of which sleeps in the bedroom with us, whilst the other often goes out at night and does whatever cats do when they're out of sight. Anyway, I like to stay up late at night and sleep late into the morning, whereas my girlfriend's an early bird. It was about 1 in the morning, and I was watching crappy TV in the living room whilst my girlfriend slept in the bedroom. I was beginning to grow tired when I heard something outside near the cat flap. For clarity, our cat flap uses an electronic chip, so only our cats can use it. I assumed it was just one of the cats coming into or leaving the house, and I ignored it. Then I heard it again. It sounded like something thudding against the flat. It happened several times at random intervals until I lost my patience and decided to just go and open the door. Clearly the cat was having trouble getting in. I never thought about it at the time, but this was weird because we feed our cats well, and they're very lean rather than chubby. I passed the bedroom and peered in as I walked past to see if my girlfriend heard the noises. She was fast asleep, but the cat that sleeps with us was staring at the window. I called her name. Nothing. She kept staring. I shrugged it off and kept heading toward the kitchen. The back doors are through there, by the way. Anyway, so I reached the back door and saw a dark shape through the translucent flap. I sighed, expecting the cat to be out there, and opened the door. It took me a moment to open the door, and I saw the cat tense up as I opened the door. The door opened fully. I froze. It wasn't my cat. Whatever it was had started moving before I opened up, and I only caught a glimpse of a distorted figure, kind of like a tailless dog, bolting, and I mean absolutely pelting it. I freaked out and slammed the door shut. What the hell was it? I wasn't sure. My natural skepticism kicked in, and I assumed it was just my other cat, and I had merely startled it. Perhaps the darkness had made it appear larger. Nevertheless, I was creeped out and decided to go to sleep. As I slipped into bed, I realized something horrifying. The second cat was asleep on the rug. It took a while to get to sleep that night. Everything seemed normal until a few hours later. I awoke to a strange feeling of dread. Something wasn't right. My girlfriend was fast asleep. I held my breath and heard something creaking by the door. It sounded too loud to be one of the cats. It was as if a person was walking about. I reached towards my bedside cabinet and flicked on the lamp. The room was illuminated, and I saw something standing just outside the open door, staring at me. The same twisted figure I'd spotted outside earlier. It wasn't very tall, maybe a little over 5 feet, but it was its face that scared me the most. I only caught a glimpse of it, but what I saw will stay with me forever. It looked like a dog, but with an elongated face and almost human-like eyes. You know that weird distorted snarl hounds pull when they're pissed off? It had that expression. I instantly started yelling profanities as I scrabbled backwards, trying to straighten up. The creature turned and sprinted down the hall. I heard it dash outside and go past the window behind us just above the headboard. I managed to look out as my girlfriend started to panic as she woke up fully. We both caught a glimpse of whatever the hell this thing was as it dashed off into the woods near our home. Grabbing my trusty shotgun from beneath the bed, as well as a couple rounds from the ammunition box that sits next to it, I ran out of the room in my underwear and rounded into the kitchen. The door was open. I'd forgotten to lock it when I saw the thing originally. I haven't seen it since, and we still live in our cabin, but I've bought sturdy locks for all of the main doors and windows in the house, and always check the exit points at night. I also go to bed a bit earlier than I used to, so I'm asleep when the freaks of the night start to wake up. I've read a bunch of forums, and the only thing I can compare it to, based on what I saw, is a skinwalker. If you know anything about these things, please let me know. Edit. I wrote daughter by mistake. Sorry about that. I don't actually have a daughter. Also, for those who are asking, I'm originally from England, then moved overseas later on in life. I've always preferred using kilometers as I just find them easier to use. And any spelling mistakes are just me being an idiot who can't spell. Third story. I think my girlfriend's a skinwalker. Eyes on the road, Max. Abby teased, "You're gonna crash." I barely dodged a car speeding towards us as I re-entered our lane. "Sorry, I couldn't keep my eyes off of you." I joked, trying to hide my nervousness. I know, Abby said, but you'll have plenty of time for that later. My face grew hot. We arrived at Oak Ridge Woods, parking in the lot, before we both took out our camping equipment. We wouldn't have to walk long. Only about 40 minutes on a thin trail left for campers leading into a small clearing. You ready to get going? I asked, smiling at Abby. Can't wait, she replied, grinning back. We headed towards a trail and began to walk into the woods. It was a sunny and peaceful day, and we had planned on spending several nights here. It had taken us both a while to get the time off of work and plan the trip, so we did not want anything to jeopardize our fun. I looked up at Abby. It's awfully quiet, she said, staring forwards. I wonder why. She was always one to worry. It's okay, it could just mean there's coyotes nearby or something. Or maybe they're just scared of 5 feet 10 inches girl with dark brown hair. Dash. Oh, shut up, Abby said, punching my side, and we continued to walk in laughter. But she was right. It was unusually quiet, and there seemed to be an almost palpable dread floating in the air. When we reached the clearing, we were surprised to see another tent. We had never seen another camper camp in our spot since we started coming here yearly, but there was enough space for us both anyways. Hello, Abby said. Is anyone home? She began to walk towards the tent, and I walked with her. Strange, she said, running her hand across some tiers in the tent and peering into the mess inside. Maybe they're just out hiking. Yeah, you're probably right, I said, ignoring the lacerations. The tent wasn't completely run down, so maybe it was just old. Who knows how many times it's been used? We should probably get some firewood. I'm starving. Abby chimed. All right, I said, my eyes lingering on the tent before moving away. I headed into the forest, grabbing sticks and logs along the way before bringing them back. We'll need more than that, Abby said. I was hoping we could stay up and tell scary stories. Dash. Oh, I said, raising my hands in feigned fright, and she rolled her eyes as I headed back out. It was growing dark, and I had to go deeper into the woods to find useful firewood. But the deeper I went, the stranger the smells became, and the quieter the woods around me grew. What in the hell is that smell? I said aloud. It smelled of rotten eggs, and with each step I took, the smell intensified. I began to look around for the source of the smell, but all I could see were shadows in the dim dawn light. That's when I heard him. Who's there? My head snapped towards the sound, but I couldn't find its owner. Who's there? Someone said again, his words sounding oddly similar to when he said it previously. Hello, I asked. Who's there? My name is Max. Me and my girlfriend are camped out next to you, I think, I said, trying to be polite. Who's there? The voice came again. I began to grow nervous. Something wasn't right about his voice, and why was he repeating the same words? Well, I'm going to head back now. I'll see you there maybe, I said, backing away, and as I did I saw 2 yellow, glowing eyes, but surely it was just my imagination. Got the firewood? Abby asked. Yep, and I think I ran into the man who's staying in that tent. You think? Abby questioned. Yeah, it was too dark to see him, but he asked me who's there, so I told him we're in the tent next to him. I made sure to leave out the strange details, knowing how paranoid Abby can be, but she still seemed nervous. And he didn't introduce himself? Well, no dash. And you didn't even see his face. How do you know he's even that camper? I looked toward the ground. We'll be fine, Abby, I said. Even if he wasn't, it was just some guy probably camping somewhere nearby. Yeah, you're right, Abby sighed. Sorry for bombarding you with questions. My nerves have just been on haywire since we got here, like there's something weird messing with me in the air. I know, and you're good. Let's just try to have a good time, I said, hugging her from the side. We stuffed our faces with s'mores and bratwurst before Abby began her storytelling. There was once a young and cute couple, just like the one sitting before you today. We grinned at one another, our night filled with laughter and fun. This is amazing, I said, holding on her tight. Yeah, Max, I love Dash. A guttural scream cut her words off, then another and another. Help me. A woman's scream. Help me. I was instantly on my feet. Max, Abby cried, unsure. We have to see if she's all right, I screamed, already running towards the woods. And Max, wait, Something's not right. But I ignored her, my feet pounding on the soft floor and only growing in fervency as I heard another scream. I could hear Abby behind me. She cried for me to stop and wait, but I couldn't just leave someone who may be hurt. Then Abby screamed. I turned to see her fall. She let out another scream of pain as she grabbed on her ankle, tears flowing down her cheeks. "Damn it," Abby cried, holding on her leg. "It hurts." I ran up to Abby and grabbed her shoulder. "Abby, are you okay?" My head lowered to meet her gaze, and I saw a flash of anger course through her, but it quickly subsided. "Leave me and see if that damn girl needs help," she screamed before pushing me. "But you dash," I started. "Go, Max," she screamed. That was always like Abby, worrying about other people before herself. I gave her one last glance before turning and running towards the screams. "I'll be right back up," I cried without looking back at her. I ran through the trees, their dark shapes blurring past me. The rotten smell grew and grew as I approached the cries. My heart pounded, my lungs cried, tears flowed out of my eyes, and that is when I saw it in the clearing. At first I kept running, not paying attention to the lone deer in a small clearing of trees. That was until it opened its mouth, opened it impossibly wide, a crack of bones accompanying its opening as the jaw unhinged, the creature taking in a long and deep breath, the moonlight peering onto it, so I could witness its horror. Then the creature let out a woman's scream. Its mouth did not move, it just hung open, letting out scream after scream after scream. Slowly, the creature turned its head to look at me, the moonlight sparkling its glowing yellow eyes, and that is when I got a good look at it. It was not a deer. The creature looked like a deer, but its antlers were impossibly long, stretching out like the branches of a tree. Half of its face was missing, showing its long and sharp teeth that were painted red. Visible ribs peeked out of its underside, and its back legs were far too long with 2 joints instead of just one. The creature's mouth began to vibrate at first, then violently shake and crack before opening wide again. And this time its scream was one I knew. It let out Abby's scream, the scream she made when she rolled her ankle. I began to back away, my heart pounding so hard I had to grab my chest to ensure it wouldn't break through. My mind was spinning and spinning. How the hell was something like this possible? And then I noticed what it had been hunched over, what the creature was eating. Tears flowed down my face as I stared in horror at the woman the creature had been eating, her throat bloodied and stomach cut open, her eyes facing towards me as if staring at me in terror. I began to cry, my whole body shaking, the fear unbearable as the creature's mouth began to shake again before it let out its next words. "Who's there?" it said. I needed to run. I needed to leave. "Who's there?" My legs wouldn't move. They were clamped tightly together. "Move, please." Then the creature began to rise onto its 2 legs. Slowly, it stood tall, then taller, and taller until it was over 7 feet tall. My legs trembled but would not run. My heart began to slow, begging to stop. I did not breath. I did not take my eyes off the thing. Its mouth cracked open. "I'll be right back up," it said in my voice. I crashed through the woods, flying past the trees, even faster than before. The creature let out a scream, the woman's scream. My feet and chest burned as I ran back towards Abby, praying that she would be safe. What if there was another creature? What if it was trying to separate us? I had no time to think. My feet pounded harder and harder until I reached the breaking of the trees. I ran to our tent and flung the door open. Abby sat there wide-eyed and holding on her hurt leg. "God damn, you scare me, Max Dash," Abby started. "We're leaving. Now," I screamed. "What? We have to leave pack up. Don't even pack anything, we have to go now." Okay, Max, but you'll have to dash." I heard a scream outside the tent, a scream that was getting closer. "Let's go," I cried. "Max, I dash." The creature let out another scream, and I began to exit the tent, Abby right behind me. "Go, Max," she screamed, and I took off toward the car. I sprinted out of the tent, not daring to even look around for the creature. I could hear Abby running behind me. "Go, Dash," Abby screamed behind me. My heart was racing, my breath was shallow. Just to the car, we just had to make it to the car. Go dash, Abby screamed. Go dash, Abby screamed. Go dash. That is when it clicked. Abby couldn't be behind me. Abby couldn't run. She had hurt her ankle, hurt it when I was chasing after that woman. And she had said, "Go, Max." The thing behind me was not Abby. Abby was still at the tent. I halted my run and spun around, my face full of despair after being fooled, tears welling in my eyes. I did not care if the creature killed me. I did not care what it would do. I needed to get back to Abby. A long arm emitted from the darkness. Then another. The creature was crawling towards me, but it was not the same one I had seen before. There was more than one. It was much smaller, and its head was tilted to the side, staring up at me with its glowing yellow eyes. Its mouth cracked open, this one looking much more human, and it began to let out a laugh. I ran past it and did not hear its footsteps behind me. I continued to run, back towards the clearing, back towards Abby, dreading what I might see. But when I got to the tent, Abby sat there alone and safe but crying. She was covering her face, tears rolling down her hands and soaking the tent floor. "Abby," I dash. "How could you just leave me here? Leave me all alone?" She cried and then went totally silent. I tried to apologize and tell her that I had been fooled, but she couldn't look me in the eyes. The shock, the seemingly betrayal, the fear, all of her emotions were erupting from her body, and she could not control them. "Let's go, Abby," I said, lifting her to her feet. Weeks have passed since that fateful night, and Abby has hardly spoken to me since. The hurt in her eyes when she looks at me, her skin still pale with fear, the way she seems to have been losing weight from stress. From stress, right? She's also been acting strangely. Sometimes I'll catch her twitching her arms alone in our room, rolling her head from side to side, her jaw shaking open just like the creature on that day. I didn't say anything. I didn't want to hurt her anymore, so I ignored it. After work today, I peered into our bedroom window. Yes, spying on her is wrong, but I was seriously worried. Abby was standing in our room, staring at herself in the mirror. Her skin seemed loose on her body, almost. She raised one arm, her body moving unnatural, as if she wasn't used to her limbs. She began to crack her arm into place, then her legs, then her jaw shot open. "Hello, hello, hello," she repeated over and over as if testing her voice. "You are, we are, we," she continued. "I love you, Max," she practiced. My heart dropped. "Oh," she said, then her head shot toward the window. I jumped back at her sudden gaze. Her eyes were the size of ping-pong balls as she glared at me. Were they yellow? I ran towards the door and walked inside. "Is everything all right?" Abby questioned as I walked through the door. "Yeah, everything's going good," I lied. That night, I laid frozen in bed. Abby wasn't even under my arm. She was Abby, right? She had to be. I turned off the light on our bedside. "I love you, Max," Abby said, mastering those words. I woke up to spider webs covering my face. No, not spider webs, hair. I could feel someone breathing inches from my face. It was Abby. She was on top of me, her face inches from mine. I was scared. I didn't want to confront her, or it, or whatever she was. I recoiled at her tongue that went across the sweat on my face. Her breath smelled of blood. "Can't," Abby said. "I see can't." And with those words, she leaped out of the bed, and I finally opened my eyes, watching as she sprinted out of our room. Her body moved unnaturally, her hands flailing the air as she ran, and neck loopy, as if too weak to support her head. She looked utterly terrifying, but Abby was still in there. The girl I loved was running away. I chased after her, but stopped as I passed the entrails of a dog that scattered our floor. I could see the dog's head, disembodied on the floor, a half-eaten foot and body, its blood and guts covering the floor. Did she do this? The door slammed open, then closed. Abby was gone, and somehow I knew she was gone for good. I cleaned up the mess before calling the police and telling them that Abby was acting strange and had gone missing. They questioned and searched, but could not find her. Nobody could. Except rumors were going around of a dark-haired lady in the woods, one that used soothing words to lure people to their demise. The same woods where we saw those creatures. Abby, if you're out there, please come home. I know you're still in there, and I will save you. I packed my bags and loaded a gun. Not for Abby, but for those other creatures. I will find her, and I will make things right again. If you don't hear from me, do not look for me. I do not want anyone else to suffer the way we have. I do not want anyone else to become a monster. I found an email sent to me the other day, and tears filled my eyes as I saw it was an audio message from Abby. I will play it here for you. And to Abby, here I come. My name is Abby Ray Johnson, and it would seem that maybe I am becoming a monster. It all started a couple of weeks ago in a place called Oakdale Woods. Me and Max were dating for 4 years now and had gone here yearly to camp and hang out, which is why we were visiting again. But instantly, I knew something wasn't right. There was a strange smell, and as we walked the trail towards the campsite, I heard a faint voice whisper, "Help me," but I had just thought my imagination was running wild. We had fun, and I had just finished telling Max a scary story when we heard the scream. There was a woman screaming her lungs out in the woods. Max sprinted after her, and I sprinted with him, trying to tell him to wait, trying to tell him that something wasn't right. How her words sounded the exact same, and as if coming from a radio. I didn't believe there was actually anyone in danger. Maybe some sort of trick? But Max ran anyway, faster and faster, and I continued, trying to keep up. When I tripped, a root caught my ankle, and my ankle went a full 90 degrees before I crashed to the floor. I don't think I've ever screamed so loud. Max ran towards me asking if I was all right, but boy was I angry. So angry that it took everything in me not to punch him, but luckily another scream brought me to my senses, and I shouted at him to go and help whoever had been hurt. After finding a branch and limping back to the tent, I laid there, trying to catch my breath when Max burst through the door panting and wide-eyed before telling me we were leaving. I tried to tell him I would need his help, that I couldn't run to the car on my own, but I don't think he heard me. So he took off, leaving me there, all alone. Despite how it sounds, I don't blame him for leaving me there. I know he was scared, confused, and that he did not notice I wasn't running behind him, because as he ran away, I heard my own voice, the same words I had spoken earlier, "Go, Max." And he listened. What I don't know is how he didn't hear my screams. Moments after he left the tent, I saw a face peek through the tent, a face that I still fear thinking about now. The face of a rotted, almost human-shaped deer with large antlers on the side of its head. Its mouth opened in a smile as it stared at me, hurt and limp, and it raised its arm towards me. Something wasn't right, though. There was something wriggling underneath its skin. That is when it stabbed me with its hand going through my stomach. Pain shot through my body like a laser, and I immediately began to cough up blood. I could feel something whirring and twisting inside of me, tendrils flowing to each limb, then reaching up and up towards my brain. It was strange. Although I felt the immense pain, I didn't feel like I was dying. I felt calm as the organism reached up towards my brain and began to latch itself onto it. The creature ran from the tent as I heard Max scream for me, and I looked down to see the hole in my abdomen had closed. Strange, I muttered before Max barged into the tent, and tears of shock and anguish finally began to roll down my face. I could tell things were different when we got home. Even I knew I was acting strangely. It was as if I was just a spectator, watching my body as it practiced human words, watching as it cracked our bones in a human shape, watching its skin grow droopy until it ate. I watched it hunt down squirrels and stray cats. I even watched as it grabbed my neighbor's dog, a medium-sized poodle that trusted me with all its heart. It licked my face as I brought it to our house. It was happy, so trusting even as I raised my hands towards its neck. But when I began to bar my teeth, lower them towards Max's throat as he slept, I could no longer watch. It took all my strength, but instead of biting down on his neck, I licked at his face. "Can't," I muttered, "I see can't dash." I could not hurt my love, and when he woke up and the thought of him seeing me standing over him made me feel ashamed, so very, very ashamed of what I had become. The shame was overpowering. I could do nothing but run. I am at an internet cafe now, and I am recording this on my phone. Max has called me dozens of times, but I will not pick up. I try to stab myself with a knife, but I'm no longer in control of my body. The knife stopped inches from my throat. I need to go back there. I need to hide in those woods and find answers so maybe I can reverse what I've become. But most of all, I need to hide so that I do not hurt anyone or anything anymore. My dearest Max, if you or anyone sees me in Oak Ridge Woods, please, I am begging you, shoot me. I am no longer in control. The thing patrolling in my body is no longer Abby. It is a vicious demon that only exists to hunt, torment, and kill. Please kill me before I harm anyone else. It is the only way that I will be able to rest in peace. Please, please. Fourth story. I think someone else is living my life. I really don't know where else I can try to explain this. I feel like I'm going crazy, or maybe I'm losing my mind or memory. No, dementia doesn't run in my family, because what other explanation is there? I, 32F, have been having multiple instances where people tell me they talk to me when I can't remember that ever happening. At first, my husband, 35M, and I thought I was just forgetting little things because it started with one of the other moms in the neighborhood asking me why I didn't bring any cups and napkins for the monthly get-together our neighbors have. I told her I didn't know I was supposed to bring cups, just that my husband was told to bring sodas, and we did. She said that we had seen each other at the grocery store, and she mentioned it to me, but I honestly didn't remember that conversation at all. My husband and I sheepishly apologized, and we figured I just didn't listen well enough, and it was my own fault. Not a big deal. People forget things. Then at work, I'm a teacher at our town's only middle school. One of my students asked me why there weren't any pizzas when the class arrived for fourth period. I thought he was just being silly. So I said, because lunch isn't until sixth period. But the whole class was starting to get antsy when I just continued with the lesson. I finally asked why no one was paying attention, and another student of mine said they were waiting for the pizza. I asked what pizza, because this was the first I was hearing about it. The class told me that on Monday, I had promised a pizza party for them on Friday if they all turned in their notebooks, which they did. Now, this is what really confused me, because that Monday, I had missed fourth and fifth period due to a mess in the teacher's lounge. Coffee was spilled, and I had to quickly rush home to clean up and change, which my principal allowed, and my boss told me he'd send a substitute to cover for me for the moment. I was never in my classroom that fourth period, so how did all my students remember that I promised a party? I told the kids the sub might have said it and not me, and I wasn't aware. This really upset them all, but what else could I do? I never said that, but all the students swore I was in the class that day, and I had, in fact, promised. More situations like this kept happening, but I really didn't take it too seriously until it started getting weirder and more personal. It didn't stop at conversations I was never part of either. One night my husband was grumbling about cold water in the shower and hair in the drain, so I asked him why he showered in cold water. This really seemed to annoy him, like it was a choice. You spent like an hour in the shower, and you didn't pull your hair from the drain when you got out, he snapped at me. What are you talking about? I haven't showered yet, I said, because I really hadn't. I was going to shower in the morning. Well, the hair in the drain was yours, and I heard the water running for an hour when I passed by the restroom. I know it wasn't Charlie. Of course it wasn't Charlie. I was downstairs with him this whole afternoon. Charlie, 5M, is our only son. He didn't really say anything else, but I could tell he wasn't satisfied with my answer. In hindsight, this should have been a much bigger red flag to me about this whole situation, but I chalked it up to my husband just being a little distracted. Another time, I woke up on Saturday and went to the kitchen to make my morning coffee, but there was already a pot that had been made. My husband doesn't drink coffee, and obviously my 5-year-old didn't make it. Maybe I had made it last night and forgot to throw out the leftovers, right? The coffee was still hot. It made me feel very concerned, but I stamped down any alarms going off in my head and made my toast. Now, I make toast in a specific way, where I make 3 pieces with butter and 1 smear of peanut butter, 1 of strawberry jam, and 1 of Nutella all on the side of the plate, so I can dip my toast. I know it's not practical, but I like it this way, and my husband has always found it a bit strange. Whenever I've asked him to make my toast, he puts the condiments on the bread, which doesn't bother me. Well, I took my toast upstairs to my room so I could watch the morning news in my bedroom, and there was already a plate of half-eaten toast on my nightstand. I felt sick seeing it. I knew for a fact my husband didn't make it, nor did he make the coffee, because he was still sleeping. I had to be losing my memory, and it terrified me. I started writing down my daily activities so I could keep better track of what was going on, and aside from a few people in my life claiming to have conversations with me, I wasn't able to remember. Things seemed to get a little better. Until 2 weeks ago, my husband got home from work, and I was on the couch watching TV. "You guys back already?" "Back from what?" I asked. When I had gotten home, I fed Charlie and played with him for a bit until he fell asleep. I left his room, went to the restroom, and went to the living room to watch TV. "The park. You told me last night you were taking Charlie." I sighed, frustrated that my memory kept slipping. I must have promised to take Charlie and forgot. "No, we didn't go to the park. He's sleeping right now." My husband went to check on Charlie, but he immediately came back. "Where's he sleeping?" "His room." No, Charlie isn't in there." Fifth story. My boyfriend is telling me to come outside. He isn't there. My boyfriend works late hours, and when I know he's on his way to my house, I'll sit and wait for him in the kitchen to greet him. The main door is in front of me, while the back porch one is behind me. He tends to come through that one, so my dog doesn't bark. He called me a few minutes ago and said he just left work and he's on his way. So I did my normal and sat at the kitchen table scrolling on my phone until I got the "I'm outside" text. After a few minutes of scrolling, I heard his voice. The only light outside of my house was the porch light, so I look out the kitchen window and nobody's there. "Baby, come outside." Normally his voice is reassuring and welcoming, but I had a terrible feeling and decided to call his cell phone. His phone is a track phone that he buys service for, so sometimes it simply rings twice, which is what it did. Every time I called. Eventually I gave up and stepped into the back porch to look outside. Maybe his phone died, and he needed me to unlock the door for him. I could feel my heart drop when I remembered the door was unlocked. I start to text him asking him to answer his phone, but while I'm doing this, the voice turns from a gentle tone to an angry one. It yelled my full name and told me to come outside. My boyfriend never calls me by my full name, and at this point I'm starting to feel scared. I looked outside, and it now knows that I'm not in the kitchen and that I looked out of the back porch window. I call him again. After what felt like hours, he answered in a concerned way, apologizing because his phone was on vibrate as well as it not working. "Why are you telling me to come outside?" Those were the first words I said. There was an immediate silence over the line. "What do you mean? I'm just now on your road." He sounded worried, but I could tell he thought I was pranking him. The voice was getting angrier by the second. It cussed at me and eventually started banging on the door. It was so loud that even my boyfriend could hear it through the phone. I heard the car speed up, then the sound of gravel from him pulling into my driveway. I finally mustered up the courage to move the curtain and see if there was really anyone there. There was nothing there, but I could see him running up the stairs to get to me. Once he got in a voice, and the banging came to a complete stop. I stood shaken while he looked around my yard, only to see a deer running away on its hind legs, just for the front two to hit the ground in front of it as it went into the nearby woods. We didn't sleep much that night, and eventually we plan on moving somewhere that's closer to the city as my house is out of the way from any other people. Sixth story. My grandfather saw a skinwalker. My grandfather told me a story once as we sat around a campfire in his backyard in the cool night of the Arizona desert. The horizon was clear, and each star twinkled in a purple sky, with a full fat moon hanging low over the mountains. His voice was raspy and gravelly, the result of a lifetime of smoking cigars and drinking whiskey. The fire danced and shined across his wide dark eyes as he settled into his seat, ready to tell his story. "Way back when I was a boy, about your age," he began, "I lived outside an Apache reservation with your great-grandfather. He had returned from the war and set about raising horses and cattle, on 100-acre ranch settled between a brambly mountainside, with dirt good for growing thorn brush and not much else. One night, my mother was sick, and Pa and I took a trip into town about 50 miles away, straight through a dry desert, over a washed-out creek, and some old abandoned farmsteads. The fire sparked, and a log cracked, jolting me out of the story. "What next?" I asked. "Settle down, boy. You'll hear soon enough." Pa and I were driving in an old Ford pickup truck. I remember it was dark out, inky and thick, with only the lights of our old truck lighting up the road. I remember, too, when the engine began to sputter and the truck slowed to a jerky stop. "God damn it," Pa said, guiding the Ford to the side of the road as it coasted to a halt. "Stay here, son," as he stepped out into the darkness, shutting the door with a heavy thud. My window was down, and the cool desert air was breezy and felt good on my hot face and neck. Pa was getting water from the back to cool the engine, and that's when I smelled it. Rotten eggs. Strange, I thought, to smell sulfur in the desert. My nose also picked up carrion, like one of them dead, bloated cattle that would drop from the heat and lay there until the crows pecked enough holes in their hide to cause the whole thing to explode. It stunk, and I gagged. My skin started to tingle too, the back of my neck felt itchy, and my face started to get hot. The wind stopped blowing and hung still and heavy, with the stink filling the cab. "Pa," I called. "Pa, PA." No answer. My heart started beating, and I felt such a fear in me, in my bones, in my chest, boy. I tell you, I never felt fear like this, not until Vietnam, not until I saw men dying around me. I locked the door and reached over for my Pa door and saw a shadow bound across the road, through both dim beams of light, across the partly open domed hood. Grandfather paused. He spit a fat wad of tobacco spit off to his side, and he looked pensively into the darkness. I realized I was holding my breath and gasped for air. The night was cool, but I was sweating and clammy. "Well, what happened? What about your father? What did you see?" He sighed. "A creature." He shook his head. "You have to understand, there were legends, older than the rock cairns out in the valley, older still than Crazy Horse and Sitting Bull, than the old Indian chiefs and their shamans. The Apache and Hapa and Cherokee and all them old tribes of First Peoples, they told tales, old stories about dark Indian magic, a deal made with the old spirits of blood sacrifice to gain power, old power enough to fight each other, and the Spaniards and later the white men that came for their land and women. They called them." He paused. Grandfather took a deep breath and bodied forward into his tale. Across the fire and the sky, the desert, the creek, the moon, the sun, and old mountains, he bodied forward. They called them skinwalkers, shape changers, old warriors resurrected as skinless men, all sinew and muscle, walking on deer legs, with the torso of a man and the head of a coyote, but messed up, boy, long and malformed snouts, teeth like a Bowie knife, long arms, and standing 7 foot, even hunched over. They'd got the old cowboys and white riders. They'd run through bullets and sabers, part the Spanish armor like it was a potato sack. Wily, too, they could change their voice to match a person you knew or might know. Boy, that's what I saw. Big and fast. Only for a second it ran across the road. Gray and mottled, muscle flexing under its legs, hooves clomping on the road, stringy, muscled, hunched shoulders. And it turned, looked right into the cab, looked right into my eyes, and I swear, boy, I swear it grinned at me. I sank into my seat in shock, in fear, shaking. I knew death was near. The air was electric. I smelled ozone and brimstone. The air felt like right before the lightning comes and blows a tree to smithereens. Charged and full with power. I yelled for my pa, but no words came out, just a dry squeak. I was shaking as Grandfather told his story. He was still here, so I know he lived, but the supernatural always fascinated me. And even now, I felt the force of his words. The real power of skinwalkers was trickery. Sure, they could change their voices, but also their skin. That's why the gods took their hide. So they could take others. Not for long, the legends say. Maybe an hour before the soul of the skin they wore would come looking for their mortal shell before going to whatever hell awaited them. Though I think that getting skinned alive was hell enough. A minute passed in what felt like a lifetime, 1 second in 1,000 years. My father's door opened, and I jerked my head to the left, putting my fists up to fend off attack. "Son, it's me," my father said, before climbing into the cab. He grasped the steering wheel and pulled himself in awkwardly, jerking himself into the seat. I cringed into the corner. I looked at him. I looked hard. "Boy, your great-grandfather was a good man, treated me and my ma right. He fought the Nazis and saw the worst of man in Poland when he freed all them camps. And now I was taking his measure. Is this my father? Do I make a run or do I die? Is it him or not? Let's go get that medicine for your ma," as he pulled the truck into gear and pulled it out onto the road, and our trip resumed. I guess it was him after all. But how did you know? Was it because he said something about your mom? No, boy, I knew, because out the window, out the corner of my eye, I seen that beast running 50 miles an hour right next to the car, looking at me with them yellow eyes and grinning mouth. I looked and saw it, hunched and angry, running next to us, boy. My pa kept his eyes on the road, locked straight forward. "Son," he said, "don't look at it, don't look at it." That's how I knew, boy. 7th story. Skinwalker at the gas station. This story belongs to a friend of mine. He told me this once, and I simply have to tell it. My friend is of Wikinuxv heritage, a Native American tribe who settled the Pacific Northwest coast. He is quite the character. For one, he is a whopping 10 foot, and has the blackest eyes you could imagine. He always has this frowning face going on, which makes him even more intimidating. He is everything but a bad guy. In fact, he is the most gentle of giants. He was working at a gas station up north back in 1992, and he pretty much always worked the graveyard shift from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. when he was relieved. Business wasn't exactly booming at nights, so he was usually watching TV or reading magazines between customers. And they were few. The area he lived and worked in was deeply associated with all things Native American. There was a potent sense of pride in the surrounding communities, but also a very distinct presence of superstition and old traditions. My friend was no exception. He was a firm believer of the ways of the old. This made his encounter even more terrifying. One night, he was sitting as usual watching TV when a customer entered the gas station. The customer paid for his gas, a pack of smokes, and some soda, and returned to his car. Nothing unusual, but as my friend looked out the window toward the customer's car, he spotted what looked like a huge dog sitting by the edge of the woods. Now, the window is located on the side of the building, some distance from the sliding door, overlooking the pumps and the roof covering it. On the sides of the roof are pretty strong halogen lights, which shine into the gas station. This gives the gas station not only an eerie lighting with the blinds casting long, striped shadows, but also blinds the teller to an extent. As he peered through the window, trying to focus on the dog, it was gone. He didn't think much of it. Even if it was a wolf, he was inside, and wolves don't tend to rob gas stations at night. Wolves were common here, but this wolf was huge. He brushed it off and returned to his mindless watching of the TV. A couple of hours go by, and not a single customer has entered since the last one. He was just about to refill some condiments when he heard a large thud coming from the back. It wasn't inside, he could hear that, but it came from the back, and behind the building they keep the garbage. The gas station had been visited before by scavenging homeless, but my friend didn't really care. It wasn't his garbage, and it was just garbage. Let them take it. But it kept getting noisier. He decided to grab a flashlight and a gun from the office and circle around the back to tell whoever ventured there to leave, as he had had enough. His presence alone would have scared off anyone, but he wanted to feel safe just in case. He exited through the sliding doors. Walking past the window, he was just sitting by. As he turned the corner, he shines the light toward the dumpsters. As the cone of light hits the dumpsters, my friend instantly drops the flashlight and the gun. It's the huge dog he saw before, scouring through the garbage. It wasn't a dog, though. It clearly stood on its hind legs, reaching the same height as himself. It couldn't be a bear, as it was too gaunt. The creature's eyes had been glowing in the light of the flashlight, making it even more terrifying. He ran inside the gas station, and he wasn't followed. He locked the door, stayed inside the whole night, and quit the next day. My friend is still convinced that he saw a skinwalker, a shape-shifting shaman of sorts that are a common occurrence in Native American lore and culture. So sorry for the absence of blood, guts, and glory. It's just a really creepy story. Thanks a lot for watching the video till the end. Subscribe to Horror in Detail for more videos. Drop your suggestions in comment section.